Hello and welcome to Accessible Globe TV. Today on a breakfast television program in Australia, Sunrise on Channel 7, there was a story about a young lady called Natalie Curtis who was having some difficulty disembarking a plane, a Jetstar flight. Now, one thing I will ask today is that you hang in to the end because I've got a personal story to share which pretty much collaborates with Natalie's story. Join us today for this story on Jetstar and travelling on Accessible Globe TV. As I said, we are going to be talking about both Natalie's experience with Jetstar and my own. Before I begin, let me say that in general, I have received great service from most airlines, including Jetstar Australia. But I have had two incidences with Jetstar Asia, which mirror and perhaps even expand on the experience of Natalie, one of which had left me stranded halfway in a journey. So I'd like to share those with you. Before we do, let's have a bit of a look at the Sunrise story, and I'll pause it at certain points and we'll just have some discussion on it. Let's roll that Sunrise story.
A Queensland woman who uses a wheelchair has been left humiliated on a Jetstar flight after she was forced to crawl on the ground.
Yeah, Natalie Curtis was flying from Singapore to Bangkok and was given access to a transfer wheelchair to get to her seat on the way there. But when she went to disembark, she says staff asked her to pay to use one. Natalie says when she refused, she ended up having to make her own way down the plane for more than 4 metres to reach her wheelchair. Natalie.
Now let's just have a chat about that. First of all, in my experience, I caught a plane from, I think it was Brisbane, it was such a long time ago, to Singapore, and then connected with a Jetstar flight on to Bangkok, the same destination as Natalie. And I actually flew Star Class, which was kind of like their pseudo business class as well. So I was completely shocked when I got to Bangkok, ready to get off the plane, as I've done many, many times before, and they said there will be a $10 US dollar fee for assistance to get off the plane. And I absolutely couldn't believe it. Now, I will say that perhaps it was the airline policy, or perhaps it was just a crew member who was being opportunistic. I have no idea. But they were the same crew that were assisting us during the flight, and they absolutely insisted that I pay $10 US to get assistance to deboard the plane. Some people are saying Natalie must have misunderstood that. I certainly did not. They went as far as accompanying me to an ATM to get the money, and I'll tell you more about that later.
Curtis joins us now with her friend Natasha Elford, who filmed that incident that she wants us all to see. Natalie, good morning. Take us through what happened. Why didn't they just give you, they call it an aisle chair, but it's a wheelchair that fits down the aisle. Is that right?
That's right. Look, there was a bit of a language barrier, and when we arrived, they were like asking us to actually pay, and I didn't really comprehend it. I'm like, no, I'm not paying to be able to get off this plane. So they all just stood around for a while, and then the option.
Just one quick one before we go on. Have a look at the carpet's not exactly clean. So to allow someone to be crawling along that floor to get to their chair is also not particularly healthy.
And that was left was for me to get on the floor and crawl. Unfortunately, my friend that I was with had a knee injury, so she wasn't able to carry me or assist me. So, yeah, I had to crawl.
And Natalie, you've been in a wheelchair since you were a teenager. Has anything like this happened before?
No, not to this point. So it was, yeah, quite embarrassing having to get off the plane.
Yeah, so Jetstar have come out and they've said there was a 40-minute wait to get one of those aisle chairs. Then they brought your wheelchair, did they? And then that wouldn't fit. So then you were just stuck. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's right. So they brought my chair onto the plane as far as they could get, and then I had to crawl the 8 hours to get to my chair. Sorry, Rose.
Natasha, take us through your side of the story. I mean, you filmed the incident, offered to help. There was also help offered by other people. What was your reaction when all of this was going on?
My first...
Just one quick one there. They did offer to carry her off the plane, which is admirable. And I mean, that is something that has happened to me before when I've flown to some far-flung destinations. I have been carried upstairs, I've been carried into planes, and I've been grateful for it because it's the only way I could get to the destination. But it is not ideal, and I will state that through nobody's fault, on one of those trips, the person carrying me did trip and landed on top of me. I'm fairly large, so I probably cushioned his fall, but it didn't do much for me. So carrying is something that, first of all, is not particularly dignified, but also can present quite a bit of danger.
I was pretty much like gutted. I'm like, is this actually happened? Like, I just felt really sorry for Natalie, and because of the narrow of the plane, and like, because I'm short, so I couldn't physically lift her as well. So like, I just felt really hopeless, and I'm like, I just can't believe this is really happening. I was talking to the flight attendants just to see like what we can, like how long it's going to be, just trying to fast track it. And again, like, they just didn't really try to do anything. They did obviously try to offer to lift her up and like carry her, but if they drop her, like, that will be 10 times worse situation. So the safest way for her was, to do that, unfortunately.
Natalie, we reached out to Jetstar. They've apologised. This is what they've said. A miscommunication resulted in the delay of an aisle chair being made available at the gate on arrival. At no point was an aisle chair withheld due to a request for payment.
Now, this is a big one for me, because Natalie continues on shortly to say there was a bit of a language barrier. In the instance that I was part of, there was no language barrier. It was pay or stay. And they said it could take a couple of hours to get me off the plane. I don't believe that, but that's what I was told. I did not know what to do. I said, I don't have $10 on me, or the equivalent of $10 on me. And they said, well, you can't get off. In the end, I said, I can get it from an ATM, and a member of the crew actually accompanied me to an ATM to get the money. So I don't believe at any point in my situation there was no money asked for, and I don't believe there was any miscommunication either. So I just want to make that very clear. What
have they told you?
So as I said, there was a language barrier, and when we arrived, there was a lady with a notepad saying that we had to pay something for a chair. So we obviously declined, because I've never had to pay to use a chair in any of my travels. So we, refused to pay, and then we just all sat there waiting, and left us with the option of having to crawl off the plane.
Well, Natalie, the good news is that Jetstar have offered to refund your flight, so that's good news. But also, thank you for speaking out, because obviously you don't want this to happen to you again or anyone in your situation.
Yeah, absolutely not. And it was, extremely humiliating. So I definitely don't want anyone else to go through what I had to go through.
Yeah, we're very sorry that you had to. Thanks for bringing it to everyone's attention.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
We'll go back to me. Thank you, Natalie. And thank you, by the way, to Channel 7 for bringing such a lot of airtime to this particular event and this sort of a situation. Now, I think it's important that I stress that Jetstar Asia is run as a separate entity from Jetstar Australia and other Jetstars, whilst they are a group. Jetstar Australia I've had no problem with. Jetstar Asia, I had the incident that I told you about. And on one other occasion, I was taking my heavy electric wheelchair via Singapore again. I checked with Qantas that Jetstar Asia would take my flight. They said yes. I checked again a day before the flight. I arrived at the airport in, I think, Brisbane, and said, I'm ready to go. And they said, look, we're not sure that Jetstar Asia will take your electric chair when you get to Singapore. I said, could you call them and ask them? They said, yes. They called them and said, yep, it'll be no problem. When I arrived in Singapore, I was met by the Qantas manager of the airport there, who was a lovely guy, and Qantas were great, by the way. And they said, look, they're not going to take your chair. And I said, look, I've got writing here that says they'll take it. I've got everything. They said, well, they're not going to take it. So I was effectively halfway through my trip, and Jetstar Asia said, we're not taking you on the second leg. So what did Qantas do? They were marvellous. They put me up for the night in Singapore airport, which might not have been what I wanted, but they did what they could. And Qantas purchased me a ticket on Silk Air return from Singapore to Bangkok, and they made sure that I got to Bangkok and back to catch my connecting flight. So thank you very much, Qantas. But that's two very bad experiences with Jetstar Asia. Now I'm looking at going overseas again this month or next month. It's almost November. And one of the best options I had cost-wise was Jetstar, or included a leg from Jetstar. But I just wasn't brave enough, wasn't confident enough to book that ticket. And that should not be the way things are. Remember, most airlines do their best to help. Most airline staff are fantastic. But please don't believe the people that are saying that Natalie has made this up or exaggerated. That is exactly what happened to me. Thank you for being part of today. Let's thank some of the people that have helped us. Before I do, please subscribe. It's really important that we get some more subscribers, and please hit the notification bell so that you get to see all the things that we do. Thank you very much. Let's thank some of the other people that have supported us, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed our content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like and share the segments. It really does help. Special thanks to Simple Solutions. They're a wonderful NDIS training organisation and also an NDIS provider. Thank you to Hello World Travel in Hervey Bay, who do all the bookings for our various travel adventures. Totally Mobile, who are there for all your mobility needs. Also, a big thanks to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It's provided by the government, but without it I would have loads of trouble actually living life and making these programs. Thanks to everyone, and we'll see you again real soon.